Well, hello and welcome to another episode of Marty's Matchbox Makeovers. Now, firstly, I must apologise. I haven't been around for about maybe 6 months or more. Reason being, I've had a very busy schedule at work and I've had limited free time to indulge in my hobby of making over matchbox cars. Anyway, I was looking in my cabinet, my display cabinet of previous projects that I've completed. And I was struck by this little Bedford wreck truck, and I was reminded that I thought I had done a little Bedford tip truck also in the same colours, and try as I might, I could not find it. I've looked through there, I've looked everywhere for it, and I'm assuming that I never got round to it. So today I'm going to correct that, and I'm going to do the Bedford, not the Bedford wrecking truck, but the Bedford tip truck. So here I am again in the hobby room, probably the first time in, as I said, over 6 months. And I am keen to get started. First up, I thought I'd just do a little recap on this Bedford wreck truck, because it's quite cute, very simple, and it's one of the older ones. So I got this Roger Darkins's guide that I got online and printed off. It's got a lot of information in it. It's a great thing to have. So there it is, the wreck truck, and you can see it came out in 1958. And I do love the colours that they chose. They really do sort of work well together, the tan, brown and the red. See the picture there in the book, the tow hook was broken. That's probably very common, I could imagine. Anyway, I'm not doing that one today. Instead I'm going to do the Bedford tipper truck, and that was actually came out a year earlier, and yet it looks kind of a little bit more modern than the wreck truck. Again, the colours are very similar, and I think they work very well together, as I said before. So having a look at this little thing here, it's been well played with, and I have no idea where I got it from. I apologise if someone watching recognises it and said I sent that to Marty maybe 5 years ago. If you did, thank you very much. But I'm thinking I may have picked it up from a flea market somewhere near Ballarat. Long time ago. I'm pretty sure this has been in my box of things to do for many years. So let's have a look at some of the details in this. It's got a tipper body on the back, with a hinged tailgate that swings freely. Nice touch. Gives it a little bit of play value in the sandpit. Interestingly, it's got crimped axles, old style crimped axles, rather than the rounded ends that were found on the later models. And it's got 6 tyres on it, 6 wheels. 4 on the back, twin axles, and 2 on the front. Now, whoever had it before me has tricked it up a little bit and painted some headlights on the front and some tail lights on the back, which Matchbox could have done just to jazz it up a little bit. Also, the person who owned it painted the chassis silver, which actually looks quite good, and I'm surprised that Matchbox didn't do it as well. So this mustardy colour is quite difficult to replicate. You don't get it off the shelf. So I'm going to try and make it with some of these Mr. Hobby yellow and brown shaded paints. And I did that, and I've got this lovely colour here, which I'm sure will dry a couple of shades darker and should look very good with this little model. I put some tape on the top there so that when I come to use it, it won't be dried out. That's the theory. For the red, I'm going straight out of the pot with X7 from Tamiya. It's a perfect match. I mean, not all reds are the same, but this is a very close match. As for the silver, at the moment I'm thinking I'm going to go with the silver because I've just happened to have it on the shelf and saw it when I was getting the other Mr. Hobby paints down. So all set to go. I just got to pull it apart. So you can see that the tipper body is held on by two little protrusions on the back of the chassis. And I'm thinking, how did they make that in the factory? How did they get that in there? It's always a little bit confusing, this. I can only assume that some lady on the production line, because I used to have a lot of women working for them, so it's more likely to be a woman assembling these than a man. I reckon they must have just forced them on. And if it broke, it went in the bin. If it didn't break, then good to go. I can only see that's the only way I can imagine they put them together, just by brute force. Same with this flap on the back here. I'm thinking I might be able to spread the tray using these long nose pliers and pop that out. And I'm thinking, if this breaks, it breaks, and I'm going to throw it in the bin and start another video. But it didn't break, miraculously, and that just fell out. Now I'm going to have problems getting it back in after I painted it without damaging the paint, so that's going to be fun to do. Anyway, we'll see how we go. So not a lot to this model. Now I've got two axles to get off, and I'll be able to strip the paint and start painting it. But as you can see, those crimped axles are quite awkward to remove. Sometimes I've cut them off and just replaced them with replacements that I've got in a box of axles. This time round, I'm going to try and grind the wider end down and just slip them off, and then afterwards put it back on and reform it. So it'll be the original axles will be retained with the model. The grindstone didn't seem to work too well, so now I'm thinking maybe I can just crush it flat with some pliers and a bit of brute strength. Unfortunately, my hands aren't as strong as I'd like them to be, and I struggle to make an impression. First time I'm thinking, will it or won't it? It might. With a bit of a force, I could probably get that wheel off, but then I'll run the risk of enlarging the hole in the middle of it, and it will probably be sloppy when I put it back together. So I try a few other things, and that one there I just deburred it by stripping the pliers off the end whilst I'm gripping it, and that seemed to work quite well. Now some of these wheels have some minor damage on them, and obviously I want the model to look brand new when I put it back together, and that's going to be very difficult because look what happened here. Using brute force, of course, to remove the wheels, and that tiny little piece of weakened metal on the bottom of the axle there on the front snapped off, and I'm not too chuffed about that. I'm going to have to fix it, and don't have a lot of confidence in doing things like that because I'm not a sort of a jeweler or anything by trade. Anyway, I'm going to use some caustic soda today to strip the paint off for a change. I normally use the poly stripper, paint stripper, but I thought just to try something different and refresh my skills set. I'll chuck the bits in there. Now I'm using tap water, and our tap water is pretty hot. If you have a shower, you can't get in it unless you add cold water. So I'm hoping it's hot enough to activate the caustic soda. And guess what? It's not. It just sits there and doesn't really sort of do much. Very, very slowly frothing up. So Julie suggested, you need hot water, boiling water, she said. So I went and boiled the kettle, came back. Hopefully there's still a little bit of reaction left in those crystals, and not a lot seems to be happening. So I go for gold and tip all the boiling water in the hope that something's happening, and it looks like maybe it is. There's definitely some kind of turbulent activity in that jar. And I've got to open this laundry door. I'm in the laundry here using the laundry sink. I've had to open the laundry door because see those bubbles popping there? Every time they pop, some kind of noxious gas comes out, and it's actually getting to my lungs a little bit, so I had to step outside and get some fresh air. So a caution to you, if you're going to try that at home, make sure you have plenty of ventilation. Whilst that's cooking, I thought I would try and clean up these wheels and give them a coat of my special grey wheel paint to make them look brand new before I put them back on. I'm just using this very fine emery paper just to scuff off the burry end of that hub. I don't know whether I damaged that taking it off, but they all seem to be a little bit ordinary. I'm just cleaning them up a little bit. I'm sure they'll be fine once I give them paint. Oh, someone at the window. Oh, it's Kevin. Hello, Kevin. How are you going? You know that money I gave you for the paint to paint the letterbox? Did you get the paint? Have you painted the letterbox yet? Right. Well, would you do it this afternoon, please? Because we've got someone coming tomorrow and I want the place to look good. Could you do that then? Okay, great. Thanks for that, Kevin. Bye. It saves me having to paint it. Anyway. Normally I use this 4 cocktail stick rig because most models have got 4 wheels on them, but this one's got 6, so I've had to up the ante and produce a new wheel wash kit. And this is that thinned wheel wash that I made up a long time ago. It seems like it's seen better days. So that goes straight in the bin and I have to make up some new, and this one looks a lot better. I'll put a professional looking label on it too. It's good painting wheels. You don't have to be too fussy. You can just slap the paint on and it seems to find its own way in the tread. Obviously, once I've done one side, I have to wait for it to dry, and then I flip them over and do the other side. And I just sit it to one side. I'm saying side a lot. I sit it to one side to dry and get on with the rest of the build. So now I am emptying out the caustic soda down the drain. Not a good idea because we're on a septic, but you know, I don't want to tip it on the garden either. Doesn't look that good. I mean, there's something happened there, but not as good as I was hoping. In fact, look how it's made the metal go black. It looks absolutely awful. I'm looking at it now and thinking, wow, what a mess I've made. Some of the paint's coming off, some of it isn't. And I've got to hurry up and get this done before Julie realises I'm using her pasta sieve from the kitchen. I'm going to have to clean that out before I hang it back up, that's for sure. So looking at this, it seems like the paint has been loosened and comes off quite easily. Hey, I think I might have a win. Must remember next time to use boiling water. I don't like using boiling water in glass containers though, because you may have seen one of my videos where the base of it shattered and it went all over the bench. Now I'm going to address this broken piece on the underneath the cab there. I'm going to use this muggy weld. I've used it a few times. I'm not particularly good at it, as you will see. You use it with a small blowtorch and some flux that comes with the muggy weld kit. So the muggy weld is like a very low temperature solder, very strong, and it tends to flow only where the flux is. So I think I put a bit too much flux on, because what happens next is not pretty. First up, I don't want to heat those tips of that brake too much in case they just dissolve and drop off. So I'm being very careful with the blowtorch. Got it on a minimum sort of heat setting, small flame. It's a little bit bigger than what you can see, but smaller than normal. And I put the first lot goes on and it goes completely where I don't want it to go. It goes above the hole that I'm trying to fill. Anyway, soldering on. I think I'll just get there in the end and eventually I'll just have to grind it all off if necessary. So I put a little bit more flux on there. and go again. And it looks even worse this time around, but at least the hole's filled, so that's a win. I just have to try and make it look pretty, which took longer than I wanted to spend on this. I've got the little barrel grinder there, and I'm hoping to get it in there underneath the wheel guard without damaging the wheel guard, and I do that for a little bit. It doesn't seem to take much metal off. I also use this bullet-nosed grindstone. Anyway, in the end I got this tiny little sort of Dremel, ball Dremel, I don't know what you call it. It's a little grinder thing, and it's ripping through that metal like nobody's business, just taking it off like it's butter. And I've got to be very mindful that I could get carried away here and end up in a worse position than I was at the beginning. And it's not looking too pretty, but I soldier on and very slowly take it down a little bit at a time. It's actually quite therapeutic using this tool. And then once I've reached a point where I can see that it resembles something similar to the original part, I just get these tiny little files. I bought a set from the hobby shop once, many years ago. And they're invaluable. They're all different shapes and sizes. You've got half rounds, 3 square, which is a triangular one, and the flat ones, of course. There's a whole set of them, and they're great. And after probably, an hour, I've reached the point where I think, you know what, I can drill a hole in that and maybe get the axle back in there and see what it looks like. I'm very mindful that I don't want to push any pressure on the bit I've repaired in case it snaps off. Now, unbeknownst to me, the muggy weld is extremely strong. And, I've used it before, but you kind of think of it as a solder, but it's not. It's proper metal. And it takes me absolutely ages to drill through this without breaking it off. I could have gone brute force with a drill, but it might have grabbed and snapped it open again. But thankfully, my determination paid off, and I'm just going to do a quick test fit of the original axle in there to see what it looks like, because I'm a little bit worried that it's not going to sit perfectly level at the front if I've made a small error in judgment there. So see what it looks like from this side, and it's great that the Matchbox guys did such a good job of forming that wheel arch perfectly for the size of the wheel, that the wheel actually obscures the scuffed up bit that is left over from the repair. So I thought I'll give it some primer and have a look and see what it looks like after that, because the primer always kind of makes things look better. There we go. You can see a little bit of detail on this model. There's not a lot. I've seen heaps more on other vehicles that Matchbox made, but this is the early days. Don't forget 1958 or 57. So not a lot of detail. There isn't even any sort of gas tank or toolbox on the chassis, which is very common with their truck models. They always seem to have one. The tipper tray there has got lovely crisp casting lines on it, which is just Matchbox all over. They were really good at what they did. Look at it, it's so crisp. And the tailgate is plain on one side and has some detail on the exterior where it faces to the rear. Now the tape I put on my paint sort of came off during the day, so I had to resort to a different method of sealing. I haven't got any lids for these cups, so I put another cup on top of it and sealed it with the tape. It seemed to work. I had to give the airbrush a bit of a clean because it hasn't been used for a while. It's been sitting there idle, and it's a bit sticky to operate. Probably had remnants of a little bit of paint left in it from last time, even though I always try to clean it meticulously. Quite often you leave a little bit behind. And that paint went on absolutely beautifully, just straight up. No effort involved whatsoever. So those two bits look good. Now, luckily I picked a red model because I have got loads and loads of red paint, which is always good to have in stock because a lot of the Matchbox models were red. So I've always got plenty of red paint at my disposal. No, I wasn't. I was so concentrating on painting that I let the model drop off out of frame. So I apologise for that. It always looks cool being when you're changing the colour of something. But unfortunately, I didn't get it on camera. But as you can see, it's a lovely, nice, thick coat. Now, where I held it with the forceps on the back, there's a little bit of, on the front rather, there's a little bit of paint that I need to touch up later. And it'll be 100% coverage. These axles, very ordinary, steel, rusty, slightly burred. Never mind, we can fix it. A little bit of emery paper and some metal polish. Trying to get the ends to shine because they're the bits that you see. And to the naked eye, I was thinking I've done a good job, but now when I look at the video, there's a little bit of damage on one of those axle pins, which I probably could have addressed, but I'm going to put a dab of silver on the tips anyway, just to sort of jazz them up a bit. So that'll probably fix that. Well, guess what? It's time to put it back together already. This seems like a 5-minute makeover to me. In reality, it took like a day and a half, but when you're putting these back together, I'm always worried about fingerprints, breaking something, damaging something, dropping it. So many things can go wrong, especially with these flat-ended axles, because I now have to reform them and it is quite precarious. I have these locking pliers that I use, and I've ground the jaws down so they are flat. Normally they've got grooves in them like the rest of the jaw there. And the idea is that I can crimp the axle end by crushing it in these jaws, the jaws of these pliers. Now, some of you who are regulars have seen me do this before, and it normally works first time round. And this time, there you go, it clicked. Now, it's very difficult to open this without it shooting across the workbench. You have to be under control. And to my surprise, it didn't work. And closer inspection, I noticed that the jaws on the left won't actually close all the way, but the ones on the right will. So luckily, I've got a second pair of these, so I'll use the second pair. And I think we might have a winner. Let's have a look. Will the wheels come off? No, they are perfectly retained. That's good. Just looks a bit ordinary because you're crushing a bit of metal, obviously. So I'm just going to dress that up with a little grinding disc, cut the end off, file it to make it look good. So that was the back. Now the front. Make sure when I do this that I have done it before where I've put the axles in opposite ways, and then you sit back and look at it and you go, oh no, you've got to take the axle out again and have those hubs on the same side. This one's very short, very tricky. You've got to do it without damaging the model. Very easy to stuff stuff up. Let's have a look. Camera's out of focus. There we go. It's worked. That one actually looks a little bit better. Not so much cleansing on that one to clean it up. Just probably a little small modelling file again. So I've got this wall-mounted Ryobi Dremel, battery powered. Seems alright. It's lasted a while. I must have had it a few years now. I think that's it. I think that little disc came with it. I've had that a few years as well. Now you can see what could possibly go wrong here. Like at the time, I was unaware that I'm putting my life in peril. Well, my thumb, but my thumb's damaged 90% of the time anyway, so it wouldn't have really mattered. But yeah, don't try this at home. All right. Always, when you're using power tools, be safe. There's one of those marvellous little files I was talking about that I've had for years. Clean them up. So fiddly, this thing. It's so small. Difficult for me to grip, really. Anyway, now another nail biter. I'm going to put this back on just like they did in the factory by using brute force. And you know what? That actually went on pretty easy. I'm happy with that. Now I just got to put this tailgate on. And this wasn't as easy. And I must admit, my heart was in my mouth when I'm trying to get this on. And I'm conscious of where my other hand is. That maybe I'm going to snap the flaming cab off the chassis or something. Because I'm having to put a lot of brute force into this. And I'm thinking it's not going to work. It's not going to end well. Something's going to break. Try going for the easy way, slide it up, and then I think I'm just going to ruin the paint. I'm just going to have to force it open, and miraculously, I managed to film it. There you go. All good. Just got to touch up the front here with some details. And it should look good. Now, I was going to use the Mr. Hobby silver paint, but then I remembered, because I haven't done this for so long, I remembered I don't use paint anymore. I use these liquid silver pens because the ink flows remarkably well on these little scale models. If you use paint, you know, it can be a little bit hit and miss, a bit gluggy here and there. You can get lumps, but see this paint just goes on silky smooth. This ink, sorry, goes on silky smooth. Oh, just tipped it over. And because I'm trying to film it, you see, I need a third eye so I can keep my eye on the surroundings whilst I'm concentrating on what I'm doing. Anyway, I do that, and then I look at the book again and I realise that the radiator grille is a lot bigger than I remembered, so I have to redo it. And you'll see what I mean in a second. So here is a reminder of what I started with yesterday morning. Nice little model. It's already been modified, so I guess I'm not devaluing it by modifying it again. And I love it. I think these little old Matchbox cars are what made Matchbox so popular. They are so cute, and they have just the right amount of detail to make them just beautiful little works of art. And the colours that they chose just really complement each other so well. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you have, please let me know in the comments, and I'll try and do some more regularly. I've just remembered I've got to touch up the chassis underneath with the red paint. Didn't get round to it. Where's all my paint gone? No way. Kevin. I better have done this. Yeah, what? What the? You gotta be kidding me. He's just done the top. He's wasted. Oh my God. Kevin! I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Marty's Matchbox Makeovers. Please like and share and subscribe. And until next time, this is Marty saying goodbye and thanks for watching.